Okay. So we're gonna get into the deep. This is a question. Now, I'm gonna preface this by saying that we are here to have a conversation about something that is important. We're here to have a conversation. I don't mean any harm by this question at all. I'm just curious.
If you have to do all of that and say all of that,
it's a disclaimer.
Okay.
I'm giving a disclaimer because I know how people on the internet can be.
Okay.
They'll hear a topic and, we jump into a conversation and then people will, they don't have the background or the context. So they just think you're just trying to talk mess. Okay. And I'm not trying to talk mess. It's just genuinely curious from a man's perspective, the answer to this question. And it has a follow-up question, which I think is going to be really helpful to our viewers. So the question is, are men entitled to leadership in their homes, at work, if they're not creating an environment for that to happen? Or let's say in their home, providing, a opportunity for their women to follow them?
And I don't think anything should be a given. So leadership, as well as anything else, is earned. But that's a crazy one, especially when you say in the household. Because I know a lot of men who feel like just because I'm the man, I got the keys to the boat.
Mm-hmm. So is that, in that particular scenario, like what are your apply to the question to that, or apply the question to that scenario?
This is one of those questions I feel like it depends on the girl.
Don't straddle the fence. I actually want you to. Now, you don't have to take a position if you really genuinely don't know, but I do think that. Think about it. Like,
for example, so I guess if I look at it through the lens of like,
if
I have a daughter and she has a man who just feels like, oh, because I'm the man, I get to run the ship, I'd be like, nah.
What about you, though?
Me?
Like, in how you see it, not as it relates to your daughter. Like, you current day, that question as it applies to men generally. Do you think that men are entitled to leadership in their households, even if they're not creating an environment for them to lead or providing an opportunity to lead their women?
Okay, so I would say no, right? And I guess for those men who aren't capable of doing it themselves, that's when you have a co-leadership situation.
What does that look like?
I guess like you. Well, I guess for you and your spouse or you and your lady make all of the decisions together.
Okay.
That's what the co looks like. The co looks like every problem that we have, we're going to talk about it, and then collectively we're going to make a decision.
Do you think that the men are aware when they fall into that category?
I don't think a lot of men follow that mold.
What do you mean?
Like, so I feel like people, because it's a pride thing. Right? So even if they feel like they can't or aren't good leaders outright by themselves, their pride will make them say like, well, I don't need her help still. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, so I don't think too many men are actively saying, well, you know what? I don't make the best decisions. You kind of smart too. Let's put it together and make the best decision collectively. You'll still have guys who will say, well, I don't care. Like, I'll just do it and then,
Okay. That's a very that's an interesting take for sure. I think, and I guess that goes back to like self-awareness, right? Because I think that most men expect and do feel entitled to leadership, even if they don't create the environment for leadership or they're not demonstrating like qualities of a leader. And then, you have to break down like what is a leader, right? And it might be a little subjective, but I think that
and then how is the girl or woman okay with it?
Well, even beyond that, though, like even beyond how she perceives it and how she internalizes it, like just from a man level, right? Because a lot of times, and I think we touched on this kind of briefly, like if I say something to you, it shouldn't be in comparison to me. Like if we just take men as a whole, as a form, right? That was where like the thought came from. I was curious, like, do men feel entitled to leadership, right? Because there's a difference between, positional leadership and functional leadership. Like positional leadership is what I think, I don't know what the percentage is, but I know that there are some men who maybe just don't have like the mold of being a leader. Maybe they aspire to that and want to be that and should. And there's nothing wrong with, being deficient in certain areas and then actually going and doing the work to develop those skills.
Who's doing that though?
Who's doing that? I don't think that men are actively doing that, which is a call to action for men though, because I think if we look at the culture and society that we're growing in, there's a lot of talk about, men being leaders and, leading their women. But then a lot of it wasn't modeled for them. A lot of it they weren't seeing men leading really in any environment. And so it begs the question, how can you be a leader if you yourself didn't see leadership? I don't think that it's something that you just wake up one day and, oh, I'm a leader. You have to actually cultivate that from somewhere, whether it's a program that you're in or you have a structured, situation that's giving you certain tools and teaching you the why behind them and giving you opportunities to practice and demonstrate it. And then also too, what you see. So I think the reason why that conversation is important, and I think for men to really think about, is because, the way a woman responds to a man is in direct response to what you show us, right? And a lot of times men will talk about, the way Black women relate to them. And it's a lot of time because we see what you do, how you are, how you show up, and that's our response. You know what I mean? And it's not in an attempt to we don't want to do that, but it's
Have
dude, if you're
conditioned to do that?
Conditioned?
Because you've seen the movie play out before?
No, I think my husband always has this saying. He goes, there's nobody who you'll give honey and they'll spit it out.
I like that. And go ahead.
The meaning behind that is everybody likes something that's sweet. If it's sour, you're going to spit it out. So you can't expect me to be in a situation where you're not demonstrating good leadership, but you want me to follow you. So
how does that go together?
It goes together because if you're giving me something that's bitter, I'm going to have a reaction to that.
Copy.
You see what I'm saying? My reaction is going to be a direct reflection on what you see and what you show me. So I think maybe it's a conversation for men. And again, it may not apply to all situations. I think there's going to be nuance either way. I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, it depends. Sure, all of that. But generally speaking, if you think of the concept, we all grow up, boys grow up a certain way, girls grow up a certain way. And then by nature of how we grow up, we learn certain things, we see certain things. But generally, Black women have a very different experience than other races of women. And so our reactions to men, generally Black men, is a reflection of what we've seen. And I don't know if you want to call that conditioning, if you will, but it's it's a direct, response to that. And I would love to see that change and shift, but I do think it's going to require women to be accountable and say, ooh, where are we lacking? I was joking with my sister about women these days, we couldn't stand 10 toes against a woman in her 70s or 60s in the kitchen, cooking. They were making stuff from scratch, breads and pastas, and they were really in there cooking, baking, casseroles, all of that, or whatever it is, whatever stews, whatever you were doing. They have recipes but I'm just saying if you put a modern woman, and I'm not saying the ones who cook and they got the brands and all that, I'm just saying your average woman in the kitchen.
Average woman who knows how to cook?
The average woman. Just the average woman, not the one who knows how to cook, just average woman who's, the average age, let's just say 25.
That's kind of young to put her with the 70-year-old.
25-year-olds are not cooking?
But they're not
30.
Seasoned enough. Give me 40.
No,
you got to give her some time to get her recipes right.
If you don't know how to cook, and I'm sorry.
We're not talking about don't know how to cook as far as you can't woman, 40? Put together the thing. I'm talking about your food is good and you out here really putting some dishes
40.
Together. Yeah, 30-ish.
I'd say 36, 35. 35. I think 35 is fair. 35-year-old woman.
You got the recipes down?
Me?
Yes.
For the things that I cook,
yes.
I don't cook by recipe. If I want to learn how to cook something, I'll look at a recipe, but then eventually you just kind of feng shui it with the seasonings that you have, the things that you like. I also have to take into consideration my husband's palate. There are certain things that he doesn't like, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think it's always good to try to add something and make it your own. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, if you put a woman 35 and then in the 60s, a woman 35.
But I think because these women that are 35 aren't cooking like that. I don't think
which is the same point that I'm making.
If she's not married, she ain't cooking like that.
That's fair. Because you have to cook for your family. You're not eating out every day.
Exactly. But if she's single doing her thing, she's not sitting down every day cooking herself a meal.
Yeah. I can agree to that. But the point I was
there are more
making,
singles than married.
Yeah.
So those are the women we picking from when we put this test together.
Yeah. So I agree with that. And I think I was just bringing that up to highlight the parallel, right? Like the same way that we as women have to say, okay, there's some deficiencies that we have. There are definitely some areas where we can improve, like our being a woman. It's not just about holding a man down and doing all those things. It's actually like what the essence of a woman is supposed to be. And I know some people might be like, oh, it's not just cooking and cleaning, but that's a large part of it, right? That's a large part of it. Like the way my husband would clean the house or even clean like the counter is not the same way I'm going to hit it. It's going to look a little different. Now, there are some men out there who are really clean and they can get it together, but mine's not one of them. Mine's definitely not one of them. My dad was like that, but my husband is not like that. But he cleans though. He picks up after himself. But the point was that we definitely have some areas, but this show is not about the women. This question is really about the men. And so that's why I asked that question.
I would say yes to your question though.
Okay. I agree.
Most men feel like that.
Okay. That they should have that positional leadership, even if they don't have the functional leadership. Mm-hmm. Okay. Fair enough. Is that...
What I wanted to poll the audience on something, man. Okay. I forgot what it was. No, it's something that we had talked about.
Like previously?
And we disagreed, yeah.
Okay.
And,
follow-up question for you. All right. So for the men who didn't have strong leadership examples growing up or who don't feel like leadership comes naturally, what would you say are the actionable steps they can take right now to build some of those leadership skills and step up in a meaningful way?
The easiest thing you can do is find someone that you think embodies those qualities and do what they do.
So a mentor.
Monkey see, monkey do. Even if you don't have the, like, for example, let's say you were looking up somebody famous, right? Or business-wise who's amassed some type of fortune. That type of information on what they did to get it is readily available. And those type of people talk about themselves and what their regimen a lot. So if you found somebody like a Steve Jobs, there are articles and stuff where he tells you, yo, I didn't sleep for this. I did this with my money. You can just start to model your behavior after some of those things.
Got it.
And then also, like you said, a mentor, you can find you somebody that you see with your own eyes doing it and then get up under their wing and see what they got going on.
For sure. Again, I talk about this very regularly. I think it's really important. Mentorship, like seeking out mentorship intentionally, because, and it doesn't have to be a formal thing. Like it can be an informal thing. It could just be a check-in with somebody who you've identified. Like you said, you like the way they move, you like what they got going on, whether it's, in finances or in relationships or even, socially, like, and you can just tap them to give you guidance. And again, it's not forever. Another thing.
And most people, if you go to someone like, yo, I've been checking out the moves you make and you give them some praise, they love to talk about themselves. They'll open right up. Oh, let me tell you how I do what I do. Absolutely. I'm glad somebody looking at me and thinking I'm moving and shaking.
Agreed. People love to talk about themselves. I mean, just imagine like somebody hits your email and they're like, hey, I want to talk to you about this experience, or, you work in the entertainment industry. How do I get into the entertainment industry? You'd be willing to do that. Like, I think most people are willing to do that. So it doesn't have to be formal. This is a really big one for me. And I think start small and build consistency. I think one of the things that women appreciate the most in men is consistency. Like not just doing it for the season, but like doing it because that's just what needs to be done. And that builds trust and our confidence in you and your ability to lead, right? Because I know that it's something that you have muscle memory in. It's not something you just do every once in a while. And so I think that's important. It's about showing up consistently in small ways, whether it's paying bills on time, making decisions, being emotionally present, which is a big one, handling problems without
qualities
being
you're
told.
rattling off?
One more time?
These are the a few leadership qualities you're rattling off?
These are examples of how you can start building something consistently just by doing these things consistently. That leadership is also encompasses being consistent, right? I think this is one that, again, will apply to women as well, but getting comfortable with accountability. I think a lot of people struggle with that. Kevin Samuels always used to say that accountability is sexy. And I think it is. Whenever somebody can take accountability, and it's not a natural thing, I think, for most people, but it takes the wind out of the sails of others,
And like you said before, people now know they're dealing with a sane, rationable person,
That.
and we could talk and we can converse now because I know you on the same page I'm on.
He hit the nail on the head. It is the most like grounding thing when you realize like you're talking with somebody who's sensible, and you may disagree, but like they're being level-headed. I've tried to have conversations with people who just not level-headed, or they're just going off the rails about something, and it's more so like the need to be right versus like I actually hear what you're saying and maybe I just genuinely disagree because this. It's just they're not allowing themselves to see reason.
At
And
all.
that is the
Most people are like that.
I know, but that is such what I'm learning to do now is once I identify that, I just like, okay.
You got it.
You got it, for
You
sure.
got it.
You know, because it really is draining. You know, it really can be a draining kind of like thing.
They say that back in the day when you were in school,
Mhm.
right? All of the, can we say slow? Slow
No.
people?
Oh, you mean special needs?
Okay.
That's what, yeah,
They
special needs
were
people.
all kind of in the classroom with
Oh,
all
you
the
said this
others,
before,
right?
yeah.
So you could look and say they have special needs. And, you know, if you ever get into any confrontation or conflict, you would say, all right, man, I know you kind of, well, now those people are everywhere with us in real life. So you
This
got to
is
kind
true.
of
They're
keep the same energy. Like, all right, man, you got it. Because a lot of people out here are slow. I'm telling you, I've seen it. All these people who talk, ask them to read a paragraph or write a sentence or write a paragraph for you. All type of grammatical errors, can't read, look stupid.
No, I agree with that. I think that is a really, I think that's an interesting observation that I actually came to grips with as well. Like, not even so much, you know, special needs or slow, for lack of better words, but just arrested development. Like, really just like,
It's ugly.
You didn't really.
I want to know how they passed you.
Not even that. Just you gotta invest in yourself. You got to take some classes. You got to get around. There's just some.
What classes would they take for that?
I don't know. There has to be some like life skills.
Life coach?
Life coach.
I could be a life coach. I might. I'm gonna look.
Invest in some skills. So leadership today could be multifaceted. It's not just about financial provision. So I know that you said that before. It's not just about financial provision. It's bigger than that. It's communication skills is a big one. How to communicate, when to say, what not to say, all that. Reading the room. And that's a skill I think that you have to kind of develop though over time. Because sometimes when you're young and you got the youthful exuberance in you.
But that's because they like to talk a lot.
Yeah.
If they used to say children are to be seen and not heard. And if you follow that motto and you just get into spaces and you just kick back and look around, you'll get to seeing things. And you're actually paying attention, you'll get to see how to read a room.
Yeah.
Especially by others' mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I don't know why he said that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And look at the reaction. Okay, that's not something you should say. Or, you know.
No, for sure. And then ask for feedback. That's what I'm going to end with. Ask for feedback. I think it's really important, especially, the parallel to this is those who are high on, their leaders or they're proven leaders in their space. It's challenging for them because they're not getting feedback because they're usually the ones looking down, giving feedback to those who they work with or those in their circle. So that's an intentional act in and of itself. It's like asking for feedback. But I think especially if you are trying to build leadership qualities and skills, asking people for feedback along the way is a great way to not only like understand how people are perceiving you and seeing you, taking that, and if you feel like it's reasonable and viable, like applying that.
So keep your ear to the streets, basically.
Essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a really big part of it.